This video covers session 6. We use the principles of direct activity allocation and assessment. You will run an automatic price calculation for the activity types offered by the cost centers. The importance of these prices was already discussed in the framework of the case study involving production planning master data, in which we assume that the activity types of a production cost center has a direct impact on product costing. This video has been divided in 3 sections. The first one, we are going to do all the planning. In the second part, we are going to do the assessment. And in the third part, we will do the price calculation. So now let's start with planning. The first thing you have to do is planning the number of employees. You need to plan the number of employees according to the company. 15 people is working in assembly, 5 people is working on maintenance, and 5 people is working in the canteen. We will use transaction KP46. If the controlling area appears, you need to remember that we are using the 1000 controlling area. For the plan and actual version, choose 0 and the periods 1 to 12 in the current fiscal year. So we're going to use the version numbers 0, periods 1 to 12, and a fiscal year which is the current 2009. The cost center is CC AS 80 and the key figure is EM minus 80. At the moment I'm using the account number 80, but ensure that you are using the proper one, the one that was assigned to you at the beginning of the course. Then you need to select the form-based entry. Once you have supplied all the fields, you can click enter and verify that the description is according to the codes that you already typed. Now you need to click on overview or select F5, and then in the current plan value you need to create or type 15, which is the number of people which are working on assembly. Once you finish, save it. The second planning we're going to do is the planning for maintenance. So it's basically the same steps, just ensure that you're using version 0, period 1 to 12 and fiscal year 2009. Now the cost center is maintenance, and the statistical key figure is the same. So select enter and click in overview, and now you need to type 5. Once you finished, save. The last work center you need to plan is canteen. Just verify again that the version, starting of the period, end of the period and fiscal year are correct. Click enter, verify the description is correct, and click overview. And then the current plan should be 5 as well. Save. Now return to your Easy Sub menu 3, and now we're going to plan the activity outputs. You will plan the total activities of maintenance 1,800 and assembly 6,000 hours. For doing that, you need to type the transaction KP26 and then you need to verified that the first version is exactly the version that you used before, which is 0. The periods and fiscal year are like the previous exercise. So from period 1 to 12, our fiscal year is 2009, and then you need to select the cost center for maintenance, and M minus and your number as the activity type. Click enter, and once you have finished, you need to click on overview and then type the number of hours. I already have it, but is 1800. Click enter. Just have in mind that in some profiles you have to put 1 instead of comma when you divide the numbers in decimals and centimes. So in this case, for example, dot means comma. Once you finish, click save, and then repeat the same process for your assembly cost center. But the activity type is A minus and your number. Select enter, overview. Now you need to apply 6,000 hours. And then save it. Now we need to plan the primary cost inputs. Primary costs are incurred in all 3 cost centers each fiscal year. These costs are 60,000 for salaries and 90,000 for purchase services in the canteen, maintenance salaries in the amount of 50,000, and assembly wage in the amount of 150,000. For doing that, we need to type the transaction KP06 and then fill the first version, which is exactly the same, 0, fiscal periods and fiscal years as the previous exercise. So it's from period 1 to 12 and fiscal year 2009. If they don't already contain the correct values, please fill out the correct values. Enter your canteen cost center and salaries as the cost element. Obviously you need to delete the activity type because all other fields should be in blank. Then click in overview and then type 60,000. Click save. Now we need to repeat the process for cost center for canteen, but the cost element is different. Now the cost element that we are using is 41 7 0 0 0 0 Just we need to check that cost element 4 1 7 is this one. Okay, now the description appears, which is purchase services. All the others fields remains blank. Now click on overview and then type 90,000 and save. Now enter the maintenance cost centers and the cost element will be salaries. We need to verify that the salaries and our cost center is maintenance. The other fields remain blank as well. Click on overview, and now we need to type 6,000. This is already done, but I'm going to type it again and then save it. Now we need to plan the primary cost inputs for your assembly cost center. Now it will be a bit different because now we need to type the activity type, which is A80, and the cost element is 42,000, which is direct labor costs. Now that you have added the activity type, the primary cost inputs can be planned either with a fixed or variable price, and we will check that. As you can see now, you can have a fixed cost or a variable cost. At the moment I already typed that, but I'm going to type it again. So it's 150,000, and then save. Okay. Now we need to plan the internal activity inputs. During the current fiscal year, the assembly department plans to have their equipment checked regularly by the maintenance team. They estimate an effort of 600 maintenance hours, and this is what we have to do. For doing that, you need to type the transaction KP06 Now a different layer appears, which is the cost element and activity input planning, but this is not the one that we need because we need to supply an activity type. So we need to click on the arrow and then verify that the 102 activity input, activity independent, activity dependent is enabled. Fill the fields according to your previous exercise, version 0, from period 1 to period 12 and fiscal year 2009. Now enter your cost center's assembly as the cost center, and the sender cost center now should be your maintenance. And your activity type. Maintenance, which is M-80. And then we need to delete this one, which we are not using. And all the other fields remain blank. Now you need to click on overview and now type 600 in your plan fixed consumption, and now save it. To check your planning so far from the cost center accounting menu, you can use as well another transaction. This transaction is KSEL. So now, for example, we're going to review campaign and then click on execute or click F8. As you can see, canteen has 1,500 100,000 primary costs. This is what we did, and 90,000 comes from purchase services and 60,000 comes from salaries. Now for maintenance, we need to verify that primary costs are 60,000, and then we have it 60,000, which is the primary costs. And then for assembly, which is the last one, now we can verify that it has a primary cost of 150,000. Okay. So at the moment we have been creating all the planning for our exercise, and now in the second part of the video we are going to do the assessment for the canteen costs. So let's go back to the main menu. In this part of the video we're going to do the assessment for canteen cost, and then we will run an automatic price calculation for the activity types offered by the cost centers. As you remember, in the previous part of this video we do all the planning for our assessment. We run transactions for planning the number of employees, planning activity outputs, planning at price cost inputs, planning internal activity inputs. Now we need to run and create first the assessment for canteen. In order to do so, you need to execute a transaction which is KSUB, and the first thing you need to do is to create a cycle. In order to do so, you need to go to extras and then select cycle and click on create. Now we're going to type the code of our cycle. In this case I'm going to use C-80. Use the number assigned to you at the beginning of the course for this purpose. And the start date of this cycle will be the first day of this year. Then you need to click enter to confirm. In the next window, you need to enter the description of your cycle. For this purpose, I will type cycle C minus CA and the number that was assigned to me. And then we need to uncheck iterative field and click. After that, you need to attach a segment. In the segment header tab, enter the name of our segment. I will use seg-80. And in the assessment costs element, type PLA 80 as the assessment cost center. If you remember, this cost center was created in the previous part of this video. Now you need to go to a different tab, which is the sender and receivers tab. The sender cost center will be canteen, because we are doing an assessment for canteen. So you need to type the code for canteen, which is CC minus CA and your number. And then you need to type the cost center which is going to be receiving this assessment. In this case, 3 different cost centers will be accepting this assessment. and all this assessment has been grouping in a group. For this reason, we're going to use the group that we create in the creation of the master data. So I'm gonna select group, and in the cost center I'm gonna type the group I create, 80. Now you need to go to a different tab, which is the receiver tracing factor. In the receiver tracing factor tab, choose the value plan statistic key figure. The message maintain fields statistical key figure indicate that the new fields are displayed by the maintenance. So we're going to continue in that. Now you need to type a different data in the selection criteria section. So as we have been using the version 0, we need to type that version, which is 0, and then the statistical key figure, which is EM80, and then click enter just to verify that everything is alright. Once you do that, you need to save your cycle. Now I have a different window, because normally what happens is that when you are doing specific transactions, you need to assign who is doing the transaction. I don't know if when you are running your exercise this window will appear, but you only need to go ahead and click enter. After that, you will see that your cycle has been saved and created. Now you need to go back 3 times in order to go to the first window in which you run the transaction. 1, 2, 3. In the last back, you need to save again your cycle. So let's do that again. The window that I explained before appears, so just go ahead, click enter and continue. Now that you have created the cycle, you need to perform the assessment for canteen costs. So now you need to type the name of your cycle in the execute plan assessment transaction. So now you need to type the periods in which this cycle will be valid, which is from January to December and the fiscal year 2009. Then you need to type your cycle, which is in my case C80, and click enter. So some information from the cycle will appear. Now what you need to do is to deactivate the test run in order to go ahead with the transaction. After that, you need to execute that cycle. If everything goes right, the system should notify you that the processing was completed without errors. The number of senders should be 1 and the number of receivers 3. As you know, we have 1 sender, which is the cost center canteen, and 3 receivers, which are canteen itself, assembly and maintenance. So now just click and verify that everything is right. Now, as you can notice, we have one sender, which is canteen, as I said before, and 3 receivers: the canteen itself, assembly, and maintenance. Now you need to examine the results of the assessment in your 3 cost centers using the familiar report cost centers planning overview. In order to do so, you need to go back. Yes, we want to leave the list and execute the transaction KSPL. Now let's have a look at the different cost centers. Let's start with maintenance. The maintenance cost center should have been charged with a canteen assessment of 30,000 euros. Let's check that. So we need to type the maintenance cost center. The fiscal year is 2009, the period is 1 to 12, which is January to December, and the version is 0. Then execute the transaction. As you may realize, the maintenance, as I said, should be charged with a canteen assessment of 30,000 euros. Here you have, I'm selecting that. In the plan assessments, we have been charged with 30,000. So this is the assessment run by the canteen cost center. Now let's check the assembly cost center. Just change the cost center name because we already have the report parameters. And now we can verify that the assembly cost center should be charged with a canteen assessment of 90,000. So here is the assessment. Now we have 90,000 euros. Now let's check canteen. Now canteen has been credited with 150,000 euros coming from the other cost centers. So 90 coming from assembly, 30 coming from maintenance, and 30 coming from, the first one is from assembly, the second one is for canteen, and the third one is from maintenance. So this is what we reviewed in the previous report. So let's go back. And now you may notice that the activity inputs and activity allocations of the cost centers assembly and maintenance are still valued with 0, even though the quantity information has been entered. This is because no prices has been planned yet for the involved activity types. We will do next. How you can check that? Let's have a look again. One of the cost centers. Execute again. And then here you have nothing has been charged. Right? This is what we need to do right now. Now we can do the automatic price calculation of 2 activity types. In order to do so, you need to execute a transaction which is KSPI, and then you need to select the first option, which is cost center group, and type the name of the group that you create. And then in the business process, select the last option, which is no business process. In the parameters, check that the version is 0, period is from 1 to 12, January to December, and fiscal year 2009. Please deactivate the test run in order to go ahead with the transaction, and then execute it. A window that is just warning you about the transaction you are doing is going to appear. It said that the results of interactivity activity price calculation has been posted, which is okay. Click enter and continue. Now you may see that the price calculation results are the total price for assessment are 45, and the total price for maintenance is 50, which is the numbers that you need to achieve. Now you can check out the results of the price calculation in your 3 cost centers. But to do so, you can use as well the transaction KSBL. Now we will display the report of our assembly cost center as an example of what happened after the canteen assessment. So now let's type our canteen cost center, which is CC-AS. Fiscal year, as always, is 2009, period from January to December, and version 0. Then you need to execute. As you can see, the canteen cost and assessment of the maintenance cost center amount to 120,000 euros. So the plan assessment is 90,000 and the allocation is 30,000. So it makes a total of 120,000 euros. What you can see here. As well, production wages are produced in amount of 150,000 euros. You can see that in here, which is the direct labor costs for our assembly cost center. And finally, we have a total input of 6,000 hours, which is what you can see here in the total quantity of your allocation of your assembly. And all these results makes a price of 45 euros per assembly hour. This result was previously seen in when you run the transaction KSPI, in which the total price of your cost center assembly for the activity type was 45 euros. As well, you also realize that the total price for maintenance according to that activity type was 50 euros. After that, you have completed the second part of the case study of controlling. And let's continue with the second part, which is integration of controlling with production planning.